Welcome back to another episode of Everlasting Veteran Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Landry, and I am joined in studio with CEO of Fly Helicopters, Brandi Rector. Brandi, welcome to the show.
Thanks. It's a long time coming.
Yeah, it certainly has. Certainly has. We have a lot to unpack. All right. One, before we dive into what you're doing now with helicopters, let's bring it back a little bit. You are a Marine. You're in the Marine Corps. And you were a door gunner in the Marines?
Yes, and a mechanic on the CH-53 Echo, flight line quality QA, and yes, air gun, like left door. I think they changed the name of it a few times. When I first got it, it was like an AO, aerial observer, and then they changed it to AG, aerial gunner, because you're left door gunner.
What made you get into the Marine Corps? What was your passion to get in?
Oh my gosh. So, well, I have a long line of military in my family. None of them were Marines, though. Maybe my uncle, but I didn't even know that until after I got out. Because it's my mom's side of the family. Weren't that close. But my dad was in the Army in the 82nd Airborne. He was a grunt. And then my brother was Army with 2nd Ranger Regiment and 101st. And then my sister was in the Air Force. And my grandpa was in the Navy in World War II. I don't even know. He did some secret squirrel stuff. But so anyway, yeah, I don't know. I felt like I was going through this part of my life and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was going to be an attorney. And then I hated that. And I don't know, one day I got an email that was recruiting for the Army, and I called my dad and I was like, what would you think if I went into the military? And he was like so excited. He was like, oh, thank God, because here I was like 23, I think, and I was working in bars. I was like bartending and, not doing really anything with myself. And I think he was like worried what I was going to end up doing. And so I said that, and he was like, I think that'd be the best thing for you. And I was like, all right, well, I was like, what branch should I go into? And he actually told me to go Air Force. So I said, I was like, all right, I'll go check out a recruiting office. And I did. And it was not the best experience. I don't know, he was like, I don't want to talk bad about him because God forbid he ever sees something, but it was just kind of like they didn't want to help me and they're kind of lazy. And so I just remember being really like disgruntled about it. And I was walking out to my car and the Marine recruiting office was right next door. And they came out and they're like, hey, what are you doing in the Air Force? You don't want to go Air Force. You want to come here. And they like called me in. And I was like, okay, whatever. I walked in and started talking to them and they were awesome. And like really aggressive and like, let's do this. Like we can help you get your transcripts and this and this and this. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I called my dad that day and I was like, I think I'm going to go in the Marine Corps. And he was like, what? And he's like, no, what do you mean the Marines? And I was like, well, I don't know. I went and I talked to them and they seem awesome. They're going to help me. And he was like, that's the most difficult boot camp. And he's like, you don't want to go to the Marines. So I was like, no, Dad, I can do it. And he was like, well, okay. All right. He's like, well, yeah, do it then. And he will tell if he was still alive and you ask him, he would tell you that I said, but I didn't say this, that I remember that I only chose the Marines for their uniforms. Not true. But they have nice uniforms. And so anyway, so that's how that happened. And then it was just, I had never really looked at the military. I knew my family was military. I never really looked into it. And it was just kind of those like, what do I do with myself? Like I need to get my act together, And then I just fell in love with that. I went to boot camp. I mean, I didn't bother me. I enjoyed it for as much as anybody can enjoy the boot camp,
Right.
And so I came out, I was company high shooter. So I got a plaque because I was like 1 point from beating my senior drill instructor and I was going to get a steak dinner, but that didn't happen. I was 1 point away. And then, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I liked it. And when I was going in and they were kind of like, well, what do you want to do? I used to work on cars with my dad. Like he taught me all kinds of stuff when I was little and he would rebuild engines and stuff. So I was like, well, I want to be a mechanic. And I really like going fast. So I was like, I want to be an F-16 mechanic, like of all things. And they're like, okay, aircraft mechanic. And when I got to my MOS school, I was supposed to be a 46 mechanic, but they were like phasing them out or whatever at that time. And so they didn't really have anybody in classes for it. So there was like 4 of us that got put as 53s, which I didn't even know what it was. And they put us in, there were only 4 of us in the class. And then I started learning the 53. And then they asked, do you want East Coast or West Coast? And I was like, West Coast? And they're like, everybody wants the West Coast. And so you probably won't get it. Well, 2 went east and 2 went west. And I ended up going West Coast. So, I went to HMH 465. And it was all downhill from there. And I went as a mechanic, but not a crew chief, which is different. And so I got in there in August. By October, they were working up for deployment, and they needed AOs, like aerial gunners. And I was like, I'll do it. And, I volunteered. And at first they were like, we're not going to let a PFC, go, whatever. And I was like, okay. Well, then next thing you know, they're like, do you want to go get your wings? And I was like, yeah. So I went through the dunk tank and all the crap you have to go through and all the training and all the flights. We deployed, and I ended up getting my wings on deployment after you meet all the qualifications. So anyway, that's how that all happened. And I loved it because I think I'm a borderline adrenaline junkie. And I was like, yeah, this is exciting and it's challenging, and I loved it. And so, I came back, and then I just worked my way, getting all my qualifications. I love flying, and I was flying all the time or working on stuff. And I loved engines. So I really got into that. And that was good. Then I deployed again. And then I got out in September I'd extended I had a 5-year contract, and I extended it 9 months so that I could deploy again. And I ended up doing a 9-month deployment, came back, and then they were like asking me to re-enlist. And I don't know. I hated running in. When I got back from deployment, there was a new QA chief, and I was QA. I was good at what I did. And I got back, and he was kind of an ass. And the first thing I was thinking about re-enlisting, I got back, some of the pilots I deployed with were like, hey, they're having problems with this aircraft. This engine will not run up. They don't know. They can't get it. Will you go look at it? Because I got really good with the engine troubleshooting. I'm like, yeah, I'll go look. And I walked out, and I made an adjustment, and I looked over some stuff, and I tweaked a few things, and they got the engine online. And then I was fixing it. Well, I went in, and the QA chief comes out, and he's like, what did you do? And almost like he was mad at me. And I was like, here's what I did. And he's like, where in the pub does it say you can do that? And I was like, it doesn't say you can't. It's like an adjustment, right? For the torque of it or whatever. Anyways. And I was like, yeah, because my old QA chief, that was like a trick that he had taught me. And so I knew that you could adjust that to get the engine online and then bring the adjustments and get everything where it needs to be. And so him doing that, and then he was like questioning me, and he like lit into me over that and saying that, I don't know what I'm doing. And he sent out like some corporal. I was a sergeant at the time. He sent some corporal out there to go double check my work. And then the QA chief had said something like, he wanted all of my work double checked. And I'm like, I'm final. What are you talking about? I'm final say. I'm supposed to be final say on these aircraft. What do you mean double check my work? And I never mess anything up. And so it was just those moments where you're like, it doesn't matter how hard I worked or like how good I was at something. I was always going to have somebody question me because I was a female. And I hate using that. And I don't condone people saying it typically, but in the instances where like it really was that bad, I just was like, you know what, I'm just going to get out, and I'm going to find something else that I love doing so I don't have to deal with this shit, because I was like, what do I say, stay in and constantly be questioned or have somebody come after me? And like, one of the sergeants, he wants to come fly a hog hunt with me. and he messaged me on Facebook, and I haven't talked to him in years and years. And he was I hated him when I was in the Marine Corps. He was so mean to me, and he was like, he told me in 2010 on deployment that I would always have to work twice as hard to get half as far as my male counterpart. And it stuck with me that, like, I vividly can remember sitting under the aircraft, like doing a fuel sample, and him come sitting on the ground and telling me that. And I was like, what? And then I was like, bullshit. Like, it was my first deployment. I'm like, watch me. I'll prove him wrong. It's not going to be that way. And sure enough, didn't matter. Like, I had a lot of respect from a lot of people, but then the people that didn't know me, or they were new, or they would come in, it was like, so I was like, whatever, you know what? It's fine. I'll continue on. I'll just get out. I wasn't going to re-enlist. And that was like kind of, it was accumulation of almost 6 years of the constant, the comments and the shit that was said to me and the things they tried to do to me. And it was just like, I was like, you know what? I don't have to do that. I can get out, and I'll go get a degree, and I'll go do something else. And so I did. And then I got out, and Sikorsky hired me like right away to come work on the new 53 Kilo, and it was in West Palm Beach. And so I went down there, and I hated it because I had just come. I was like 9 months of running day crew. I was the day crew, desk sergeant, QA, and air crew, and I was like, tempo was like you're like constantly go, 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 go.
Right.
I came back, got out, and then got hired on. I was so excited. I got there, got moved down there, all these things. And then it was like, oh, here, sit at the desk, run through the manuals, read through these new pubs that we're writing, and make sure that all the steps are in there. Like, don't forget the safety wire and the torque. And I'm like, what? Sitting at a desk all day, I was having like the worst anxiety in my entire life. I would like sit there, and I'd start to like freak out, and I would get up and start walking around, and I'd like go down into the hangar, and they're like, you can't go down there. I'm like, why? I work here. And they're like, well, don't touch anything. And I was like, this is the worst thing I could have ever done, is like try to sit at a desk. It was miserable. And so I lasted like 6 months. And then I was like, I have to go. I can't. So I went to be a police officer. I was like, I'm going to go be a police officer. It's exciting. It's dangerous. I'm doing that. And I moved back to Indiana, where I'm from, and I started running the police PFTs for all these different police departments, and I was like doing them and going to school at Embry-Riddle online, and they had a campus there, so I was doing all that, and then I don't know, it was just like one day, I think I was like, I really missed flying, and I was like, man, I just want to be in the air. Like, I just want to go fly. And I'm a little bit of a control freak. So I was like, I could be a pilot. Like, I could do that. Like, I can do this. And I want to do that. And then, but I didn't know how to go about it. Well, then I can't remember how I found out, but somebody was like, you can use your GI Bill and go to flight school. And I was like, what? So I looked into it, and sure enough, you could. And I was told my dad about it. And I was like, I asked him if he would help me get a hotel. St. Louis University had a program with Midwest Helicopters where you would get a bachelor's degree and you get all your pilot training. And I was like, done doing that. So I called him. I was like, Dad, can you get me a hotel in St. Louis until I can afford to get an apartment? And he was like, what? And I was like, I can do 30 days. I laid it all out. And so he was like, all right, and I knew not one person. And I moved my ass, packed my shit in my car, or my truck, and I moved all the way to St. Louis, and not knowing anybody, and stayed in a hotel, and started in the late fall of 2015, and started flying. And I had my private pilot. I did my private pilot check ride in like either the end of December, like the first week of January, like 2 months later. And I was like, I love this. And I was going to school, and then I got hired at, I got a job at Trans-States Airlines as a mechanic, because I got my A&P. So I was an A&P mechanic, and then I was working on the CRJs and ERJs. And the maintenance chief was a retired Marine guy, so it was perfect because I understood him and he understood me, and I was like, I love it. This is great. I was the only female on all 3 heavy check lines. I think we had 3. I was the only female mechanic, but I didn't give a shit. I'm like, I'm used to this. This is fine. And they made sure to ask me ahead of time, and I'm like, is this what civilians do? They like ask if it's okay. I was like, it's fine. And so I was like, I'm stubborn, don't worry. And so anyway, I ended up starting there, and then I got promoted to inspector. They call it RII, which is like a CDI, CDQ. And so I got promoted, and then I was like an inspector, and then I got promoted again to head of safety, so over their whole SMS program, and then so everything was great there. And then I was going to school full time and flying all the time, and then I got all my license, my ratings and stuff, and I had gone to like, I don't remember what year it was, Heli Expo. And then I found out about Customs and Border Protection. And I was like, I could go there, but I didn't have enough flight time. But I started talking to them and the recruiters and stuff. And long story short, I graduated in December, and I was hired on with them. And I was in FLETC in January, so the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Georgia. So I went through that. And then all the while, my dad was in Florida, and he had been fighting cancer. He had gotten prostate cancer, and then they said it was from Agent Orange. And he had gotten prostate cancer, and then it was like getting bad, and he had gone through a couple of things of chemo, and then I don't know if it was like spreading or he didn't know he had bone cancer. I don't know. It starts to get a little bit blurry in this time. And I don't know if it's because it was like really traumatic or whatever. Because like my mom passed away in 2009 when I was at combat training a day before I graduated MCT. So she was gone, and it was just me and I'm my dad's only kid, and I have half siblings, but I'm my dad's only child. So we were really close. And so I was going to see him while I was at FLETC on the weekends and stuff. And I graduated from the academy, and then you have to roll into Spanish training. And then I was stationed out in Coronado, and I had gotten in while I was at Spanish training. We all went out and was doing this getting ready for a test, and like the class all got together. There's like 7 of us, I think, or something, and we had all went out to the beach with one of the instructors to go, like, we were just practicing like our Spanish speaking, like interdiction stuff. And we were all drinking like mimosas that day. And then on my way back to base, I got pulled over coming into the base. And I was like, well, I'm fine. I only had 2. I was like, whatever. I had 2 all day. I was like, I'm fine. Well, I got like, the guy was such an ass. And I know at this point, I'd already been through all the training. So I knew all the rules and stuff. And I knew that he knew that I was going on to the base. And apparently the state cops and the feds don't like each other. And I didn't know that. And so he was being like really rude. And I was like, God, why are you so mean? And so and he gets out and he's like, will you do a field sobriety test? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And so I do it or whatever. And then he was like, will you do it? He told me I can't remember how he approached it. Something out of breathalyzer. I was like, huh. I was like, no, you can't ask me that. I was like, all right, well, if you're asking me to do a breathalyzer, I must have failed one of your tests. I was like, which one did I fail? And mind you, I'm like, I'm fine. And so he was like, he wouldn't tell me, and he started getting really pissy with me. And I was like, and he's like, you think you know everything? And he started talking shit to me. And I was like, dang. And so I was like, well, I don't have to take it. I was like, you have to tell me. Well, he wouldn't. And he's like, well, then you're under arrest. And I was like, well, so be it then. Because I was like, I'm standing my ground. I was like, I know you're in the wrong. So anyway, long story short, and it ended up getting thrown out of court. Like, yes, he arrested me, but the video and everything got brought up, and I had to get a lawyer, and it got thrown out because he was in the wrong. And so I didn't get charged with anything. I got no charges. And but because I had gotten pulled over, then I got put at my unit out in Coronado in California. It was like your first year or something, you're on probation. And I was like, and my argument with them was like, well, I didn't get charged with anything. Like, I didn't
Right.
yes, I got pulled over and yes, that happened. And, I'm sorry about that, but there's no charges. I wasn't in the wrong. They were in the wrong. But they were like, well, I guess I can't remember, like the director for the Southwest region or something he was like really against drinking and driving. I'm like, well, I understand that. And I was like, but I didn't, I didn't, it wasn't, that's not how this happened. And I tried to fight it, but they were like, because I was on my 1 year probation, they can let you go or something. And so I was like, well, whatever. And while that was going on, my dad, I flew him out to La Jolla and put him in the veteran hospital, the VA hospital in La Jolla. And I was there with him all the time at the hospital. And while they were, it basically got to where they're like, there's nothing we can do but keep him comfortable. It had spread to like all the cancer was all through his bones and his whole body. And so I started working at Air Resources as a mechanic, and the guy was supposedly going to let me fly. What I did not know is that he is a little bit of a chauvinist, and he had no intention to ever let me fly, and that he was just going to make me be a mechanic the whole time. And I was like, okay. Well, so then I started doing other stuff, and then I started working on old World War II aircraft and things like that. And then my dad, he ended up passing away February 6th in 2019. And then I buried him on his birthday at the Florida National Cemetery in Florida on his birthday, February 18th, which is why I do the Vietnam veteran event on his birthday every year, where I give away the hog hunts and stuff. I'm not doing it this year because we're not set up, and it's just, there's a lot of planning. But I think what I want to do next year is put together something else for Vietnam veterans, where I can do something for them, whether it's like fly event, like something. I'm going to put some kind of event together, which we were doing all the time. But so anyway, so then that happened, and then I got super depressed. I quit working. This is when like everything but I had just got together with Mike, and Mike was in this huge custody battle, and so he was like spending all of his money trying to fight for his kids, and his, you've heard it a million times. Men, the wives are trying to take them for everything they have. I've heard it a lot with the military. It happens a lot in the military, I feel like.
Yeah.
And so he was spending all his money there, and I quit working, and I wasn't making any money. And so the house that I was renting, and when we had got together, I couldn't afford to be there anymore. So I sold what I could, packed everything else up. He had a storage unit, put everything in storage, and then we borrowed a horse trailer I don't remember how that happened though. We got a horse trailer from somebody off Facebook and lived in that at one of the reservations out in California. And basically we were homeless, and we were borrowed this horse trailer, living in it, and Mike was telling his kids we were camping. I was like, okay. We're not camping. Wow. And so, and then I don't know, the turning point where I was like, you know what? My dad would be so disappointed in me, because he was always very much like, suck it up. I'd call him when these guys would be mean to me in the Marine Corps. I'm like, Dad, you would not believe it. It gave us a culture shock. I was like, these men are like mean to me. I was like, they made me stand at parade rest in front of the entire shop by myself, because I was the only female, just so they could talk shit and tell me every women joke they'd ever heard. Like, that was like a game to them. They wanted to see if they could make me cry. And I'll never forget calling my dad, telling him that. He's like, well, did you cry? I was like, no, I didn't cry. And he's like, good. You stand there and you let them know. He's like, you pull up your push-ups, you stand and you be strong. And he's like, you let them know that they can't break you. I'm like, all right, they can't break me. And so they did some crazy shit to me. That was like one story. I have tons. But I was like, I'm fine. Challenge accepted, So he was very much like my push, like, be strong, don't give up, keep going. And so whenever I kind of felt like I got to this point where I was like, God, he'd be really disappointed in what I'm doing with myself right now, because I don't even have a job and I'm fucking homeless. So I reached out to one of my old buddies. Actually, I think he retired as a master sergeant, and he was working at General Atomics. And I called him, and I was like, can you help me get a job? And I was like, I can't keep doing this. And he was like, yeah. And so he ended up kind of getting me connected with the right people, and I got hired at General Atomics as a sensor operator on the UAVs, like the Predator and all of the big ones that drop the bombs. And so I got hired, and part of the perk of that job was they house you, so all your training is forever. So I feel like it takes forever. It took like a whole year, and so I ended up out in like Dugway, Area 52. I don't know if you know it. You should. If you don't, it's really interesting. But it sucks because you're like, the closest hotel is almost an hour from there. So I had to like 4 a.m. to be at work on time and do all the training. And it's lots like learning the systems and learning everything about the aircraft. And so I was out there for a long time, many months, but everything's paid for. They give you a rental car. They pay for fuel. They pay for your hotel. Everything's paid for. So it was like I had a place to live. And then Mike stayed in Texas, but then he ended up coming out and staying with me in the hotel while I was going through training. And then after I left that training, I went to Palmdale and did more training. And that's when COVID hit. And it was almost a year to the dot when COVID hit, and they did a huge layoff at General Atomics, and I got laid off. And then I was like, what are we going to do? But the good news is I had sold my dad's house and made a little money there, paid off everything, all the debts and stuff. And then I'd been working and living in a hotel, and I didn't have any other bills but a storage unit. So I was able to pay things, get caught up, and then get my VA disability rating taken care of. And all these things kind of came together. So when I got laid off, I was like, I was sitting pretty good. And so he was like, well, let's go back. He's from Texas. So he's like, let's go to Texas. So we would come to Texas, and then I was like, what are we going to do? And I started looking at flying jobs, and I was like, have you ever seen helicopter hog hunting? And he was like, no. And I pulled up a YouTube, and we were watching it. I was like, I want to do this. And I was like, I'm going to find somebody that does it. So I started on Facebook on like Helicopter Pilot Network. I'm like, does anybody know any companies hiring for helicopter hog hunts, like pilots? And found one. He was an Army guy, and it was just him and his aircraft. And he hired me. And because I got laid off in October, and I was hired by December, we started in January. So it worked out. And then he had gotten a job at EMS. So basically he got to this point where he was like, he wasn't there. Mike and I were running it. I was flying it. We're running it. And then I guess he couldn't get insurance. Something happened, and he was like, if you want to buy the company, you can buy it, or I'm just going to bankrupt it. And I was like, ooh. So I talked to Mike, and I'm like, I was like, do you want to do this? Because what I forgot to tell you is I was in a hiring process at the FBI, like right before the layoff happened, because I wasn't loving being a sensor operator. I mean, you sit in a freaking Connex box basically, and or like a shipping container, and they're all decked out, but God, it was terrible. I was like, this is, again, sitting inside, like I felt like trapped. And
the office job that you don't like.
Exactly. Yeah, except this time it's like playing a video game, like running cameras and stuff. And so I had applied at the FBI, and I had gone through all the initial. I went through my polygraph. I had already gone through all of my interviews. I had like one interview left. So come like December, they were trying to schedule my final interview for January, so that I was in the next class to go to the like the boot camp for the FBI. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank, but I was at the end. And and Mike had applied and was looking at the CIA, and they'd reached out to him about paramilitary stuff. And so we were going to both do that, which I don't know how that was going to work, but we were doing it. And I was like, I remember sitting down with them, and I'm like, what do we do? Like, do we take that? It's a big risk. I'm like, do we take this big risk and to buy this company, or do we like go into the federal government, like go take Fed jobs? And I don't know. And we talked about it. And finally we were like, you only live once, like, let's take a risk. And so So we did, and we took the company over, created a new LLC, blah, blah, did all the things. And that first year was great. And then the next year was okay. And that's kind of when like Texas Parks and Wildlife Nightmare came about. And then life isn't too exciting in between there. And then the summer of 2022, going into the summer of 2022, we had gone to, have you ever been to SHOT Show? We went to SHOT Show. We were going to SHOT Show every year. And we were at SHOT Show talking about what we were going to do this summer, because when hog hunts are done, you can't fly them anymore because you can't see the hogs. I don't want to take people's money and go fly them around and not shoot anything. I was like, what are we going to do, for the summers and like whatever. And we started talking about it and decided to do tours and we're like, let's do a tour company in Broken Bow, Oklahoma, because we've been there and we loved it. And so just like a harebrained idea, like, yeah, let's do that. Cool. All right. And then we sat there, we're sitting in the hotel room talking about what are we going to name it? And that's when we came up with Semper Fi. Like we shot back, trusted there's a lot more other versions of it before we came to that. And then he had said Semper something. And then anyways, and I was like, Semper Fi. And then we're like, yeah, let's do that. Okay. Well, anyways, fast forward. We did it. We launched 4th of July weekend and started flying the tours. And then it was okay, except everybody complains, like so many complaints and such a nightmare. And then people being mean to us for no reason. I'm like, I'm just trying to fly tours. Like, you don't have to be mean about it.
Right.
And making threats that they're going to shoot us out of the sky, all the things. And I was like, gosh. And so that following year, 2023, I went to Verticon. They rebranded Heli Expo Verticon. We were there. We saw an Oklahoma booth, and like Oklahoma Aeronautical Commission is what it was called at the time. And we're like, let's go talk to them and see what they're doing at Heli Expo. There's no big helicopter companies in Oklahoma that I was aware of. So we started talking to them, and they were like, hey, Oklahoma's huge in aerospace and defense. They're big in aviation. Like it's huge. It's growing. And that's their big focus. And so they were like, you should start a flight school in Oklahoma. And I was just like, ugh, I don't want to do that. Like, no, that doesn't sound fun. And so we talked, and then I like planted that seed, and I started thinking about it. I'm like, we could do, I don't know. So I called up my DPE, my designated pilot examiner, for people that don't know. He gave all of my check rides from private to II, and he was a Marine. And he had bought the flight school after I was already gone for a while and I'd graduated. Him and a partner bought the flight school I went through. And I called him up and I told him, I was like, could you like give me some pointers on like flight schools? Like if I wanted to start flight school, and he's like, don't do it. And I was like, oh my God. And he like gave me, and I was like, listen, I'm stubborn and I think I can make anything happen. I was like, just tell me what I need to do. And he was like, all right. So he kind of helped me out and told me all the things and manuals, and was like talking, and I was like, okay, I think we can do this. And so a couple months later, I was outside, and I had used our network, and I had a couple calls, like a couple people that I could call. And my first call was actually OSU. And because we knew people that knew the guy there. And so I called there and I was like, hey, what do you guys think about adding a rotor program to your fixed wing? And they were like, I don't think that there's a demand for helicopter flight schools. And I was like, what? I was like, all right. He's like, well, some military guy had tried it or something, but all he did was market around the campus and nobody was really interested. I was like, okay, because everybody that he was marketing to already had degrees planned out probably. Like you can't just go to the campus and be like, oh, hey, I know you're going for engineering. Would you like to be a pilot instead? Like nobody's going to be like, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
And so I was like, that was a bad approach. And they were really nice. And he was like, well, maybe we'll get back to you. I was like, man, whatever. That was a dead end. So then I called OU and I was like, hey, and Eric Wydrow, I got him on the phone right away. It was weird. And he's the director for the School of Aviation. He's an Air Force guy. I was like, what do you guys think about a rotor program? And he was like, actually, he's like, we've been, wanting to add it. We just don't, we don't know how to go about it, and I don't think OU wants to spend the money on what it would take to build up a rotor program. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. And he's like, why? What do you think? And I was like, well, I was like, we have Semperfly helicopters. And I don't even remember what I said. I was like, I think we could do it. And I think it'd be great and all these things. And I was like, I could pitch it to you. And I already have the TCOs. I already have all this put together. I know what aircraft I want. These are the aircraft I want to use. I was like, what do you think? He's like, okay. And so he set up a meeting. We talked about it. And then OU, I guess it went up the chain. And then they were like, you know what? Yeah, let's put out a request for proposal and get some bids on it, and let's see, So they did, and in December it closed in January, and I found out we won the bid on February 1st, and then it was like hit the ground running, like fast. Like we got to get a 141, which takes forever, but somehow I got it done in about 7 months, which is fast. And our guys are amazing. Like we hire instructors, go buy aircraft, buy a simulator, like put it together, get all of our things, like our SOP. Like it was a lot to do, but we did it, and it's turned out really great. And we're doing really good. We actually have we had 10 students enroll, but 3 they had financial problems or something, and so they kind of dropped out early. And then our 7 that we still have, they're doing check rides next week. Oh my gosh. The 7th, 8th, and 9th, we have check rides. So, and then they're going to have their private pilot's license and then roll in instrument and whatever. So we built our whole program, put it all together, and we have 45 new students enrolled for fall semester already. And so we went from 7 to 45,
wow.
That. And so we've been getting a lot of attention. We're getting a lot of people wanting to know what we're doing, and kind of one of the things that when I started digging into flight schools, and I started, because I know my own experience, and then obviously I talked to other instructors, and I've talked to friends, everybody, all my pilots that I know, everybody's gone through flight school. So I'm like, what is the downfall? What complaints do you have that you went through flight school? Because I want to make it better. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel, but I'll do it. I want to do it different. I want to be better at what we're doing, and I want to help people. I know one of my struggles was I was a CFII. The school wasn't hiring, and I didn't know where to go get a job. Nobody guided me anywhere. I didn't know what jobs I could get with 300 hours. I didn't know anything. And it wasn't, they don't really, and the complaint that I kept seeing everybody say was that, if we can't get hired at the school as an instructor to build time, then, we're just out doing whatever we can that costs them more money to try to get turbine time. You need turbine time to get anywhere in this industry. And it was just, that was, and people, there was a lot oh, they took our money and they act like they don't care. And, or some have gotten screwed over by some other companies that took their money up front and then bankrupt the companies. And so these kids are out, or, and so my approach to this flight school was, and is, find out where the pitfalls are. What are the major complaints? And because we care, how can I do it better? Because I care where our students want to go. So one of the first things that we did, our first class, I had all of them why do you want to be a helicopter pilot? Where is your goals in life? Do you want to be EMS? Do you want to be fire? Do you want to go military? Do you want to, what is it that you want to do? And so I had them all tell me. So then I can use my network and bring in industry professionals and let them ask questions and talk to them, come talk to the class, bring a different helicopter, let them see all these different options, and really immerse them into the rotor world, as opposed to because when you first come in, I had no other than the military. I was oh, being a pilot in the civilian world, what do I do? Where do I go? And I really felt that was such a huge gap. And then there's no pathway programs out there that I'm aware of. There could be, I guess, but not that I'm aware of, where the airlines do with fixed wing programs. You go through flight school, and then they had like Southwest or United. Like I think OU is with Southwest and now United. But like they have a pathway. You graduate school, and if you want to go to these airlines are hiring these, and then they're doing continue on training, and then they build their time, and then they go fly. You know what I'm saying? Like the rotor world does not have that. It's not that I'm aware of, and so. I was like, okay, I can build pathway programs. Like you can fly SIC and build time and get experience and not be the pilot in command. And there's options, there's ways to do it. And so I was reaching out to like everybody that I know that owns companies, that like different types of companies and helicopter companies. And I'm like, like if you were going to hire a pilot, what are you looking for? Is there a path that you would be open to taking on a lower time pilot to help them get to where you want, and you train them the way you want them trained, and then they can become PICs with you. And I've gotten a lot of good feedback with it because the helicopter industry is like there's pilot shortages to a certain extent, you know. So I think that because the word is kind of getting out of how we're doing things, and our instructors, the instructors we have all came from other flight schools because they weren't happy with the environment, or you know, and they weren't happy with the way they were treated. They weren't happy with the pay. So we pay at the high end. Like I asked around about what other flight schools were paying instructors, and I went high. Like I was like, okay, fine. And because I want good quality instructors too, so that our students are getting good quality instruction. I want our environment to be a certain way. Like I'm pretty particular about how everybody's treated. And, you know, another complaint that I see a lot, I'm in a lot of these female groups like Whirly Girls, Women in Aviation, female aviators sticking together. And I don't really participate in like social media conversations per se, but I read them all. Like I'll like scroll through and read what people are talking about, especially if I see anything about flight schools. And a lot of the complaints I see with the females are that, you know, their instructor is a guy and like he made this comment to them, or he did this, or they feel, you know, undervalued, or they, you know, all these things. And I was like, well, for sure, that will never happen at our flight school. If I even get wind that I think an instructor is treating anybody differently, I'm like, your ass is gone. Like it doesn't work. And they know that. We do like weekly meetings, and I think our team now is really good, and we're building them. I'm getting ready to hire another instructor, and I think everybody that I have right now just loves teaching, which is important. Because if you don't like it, then you're not going to be good. You're not going to be a good instructor. And then you teach bad habits. They all are standardized. Like I'm trying to make it the absolute best training, the best opportunities, the best environment that I can make it. And so I think, you know, word is starting to kind of get out between, you know, the magazine articles and the interviews that I've done. And so I've been getting a lot of messages and a lot of veterans. Like we're all veterans right now. I don't have any civilians working with us at the moment. Everybody's a veteran, and I've been getting a lot of veterans now that are coming out of the military, or like that are at other flight schools that are like, hey, like I've been hearing about you guys. Like can I come check you out? Can you have a conversation with me? Like I'm really interested in what you're doing. Or do you have any job openings? Like I'm getting a lot, which is nice because that's what I wanted. And I want people to know that we're doing, and that we actually care. And that one of my assistant chief instructor was like, he's so sweet. And he was like in tears telling me how happy he is to be with us, and that he actually feels like he's valued, and he's a good instructor, and he loves to teach, and he's really good at it. And that he just feel like he's so excited to be a part of this program, you know, because that we actually care, and it's like lacking, I think, in the industry world. And so Vertical Aviation International, which is what they're called now, I had talked to their head of education and training, and he's also a Marine. And I talked to him and told him, and they, you know, and they kind of know what we're doing, and I'm friends with some of the board members, and they offered us to do some kind of like collaboration partnership. And so basically they're like, we'll promote, membership and promote VAI, because I believe that what they want to do with VAI and what it is about is, they're there for the owner operators and all the pilots, and they want to be like the hub that if you have any questions, if you want training, if you anything you need in the rotor world, you should be able to go to them. And so they haven't partnered with any flight schools before, but will be the first one, and we're going to build it together, like some kind of collab, so that they can help us with all the networking and opening up doors that maybe I wouldn't have been able to open, or the knowledge or the teaching or the training or whatever it is, to help to give more opportunity and more options to our students and scholarships and things like that. And then so how exactly it's going to look, I don't know. I just know that we're signing into like an agreement with them that we're going to work together. We're going to come up with ways to make the vertical world better, the vertical industry, make it better for new pilots coming in, and the best training that we can offer. And so I've become really passionate about something I thought that I would have absolutely hated. Like, I don't necessarily instruct myself. I have my instructor, ratings and stuff, but maybe I will. I've been thinking about it, but like right now, I'm just like, I'm so focused on putting everything together, putting all the pieces together, and making sure that we're in such a good spot to be able to offer, because I love helping people. So I'm like, I want to make sure everybody's good and that they have career paths, and you don't spend all this money in flight training and then have no idea what to do with that, and have to spend even more to get the hours needed to actually get a job that you may or may not like. Like, I want you to, if you love what you do, then you're going to be great at it. So don't take jobs that you just don't want and that you're miserable, because you flying helicopters is dangerous. So anyways, Superfly's turned into this big machine now, and like other universities have contacted us, and they have asked us about rotor programs at other universities, and law enforcement. We've been contacted by some law enforcement agencies about doing training with them. And so there's a lot of opportunities there for us to be able to offer training. And if I can make the, vertical industry better, then I would consider myself like that I made it. You know what I mean? Like, I've actually done something really meaningful. I mean, being in the Marine Corps is meaningful, but.
Yeah, so hearing your story, and there's like, I wrote down a bunch of stuff, and you basically covered every single question that I would have asked without me even speaking. And I wanted to give you that opportunity because your story is amazing. You're a pioneer in your field, and that's why I always like bringing it back, right? Where it all started, like you didn't wake up one day and just go, I'm going to have a helicopter hog hunting company. I'm going to do this with, a college. Every kid growing up may say, oh, I love helicopters, or I love doing this, or I want to be a race car driver, but then your story of the trials and tribulations of life, right? And going through the ups and downs and persevering and having resilience, the amount of resilience you had to have and still have to be a pioneer in the rotor world is phenomenal. And if anybody wants to check you out, I believe it's separateflyhelicopters.com. I was checking out the site, and I mean, you guys have been doing phenomenal. And to break everything that you said in like a little nutshell, I do have a short little video to show, just to showcase a little bit of Sky Hunter. And, I don't have any new videos, but this will showcase a little bit of how badass you are. And mean that I had to play that. It's been sitting in the queue for a while now.
Oh, I
Um,
love that.
I mean, it wraps it up. I mean, the adrenaline you speak of, wanting more, and that grit that you have to succeed and make others successful. And I hear the passion that you have of pouring everything that you've been through in life into your business so others can have opportunities, and using your experiences as well in life to create those opportunities for others. And it's truly commendable.
Say
It truly is because I mean, you said, I mean, there's not a lot out there for, there is like the fixed wing programs, being a pilot, go to American Airlines, whatever the case may be, right? But when you were talking about it, of for rotor pilots, no programs existing where okay, they can go get their license, but then there's, you got to struggle to find the job that you want, and the opportunities and all that kind of stuff. For you to create a program for people to be trained and have by the best, right? Because let's face it, you have a high set of standards coming out of the Marine Corps, and you know that Marine is coming out in you when you make sure that they have the opportunities that they need, and you have the best pilots for them or instructors for them.
yeah. And mentors, like I think it's so important to have like somebody that's like advocate, almost like advocating for you, and they're mentoring you, and they're like, no, listen, like these are laid out in front of you, like these are all the things that you can do or not. And then one thing I totally forgot to mention till you just said that was, I'm also trying, I am going to put together like a military to civilian program. They have vertical aviation does something like an hour long class or something at Verticon every year, but it's like what I really want to do is talking to military pilots. Is like, going from military to civilian, your log books have to get transferred over. You got to get a different medical. You got to, if you're like only thing you ever flew was a CH-53 Echo, and then you got out and you have all this time, but you're like, I want to go fly EMS, but I don't have any, I've never flown a long ranger. I've never flown a bell. I've never flown anything but this. Like, how do I go here? But I have all this time? And
Right.
so what I'm working on is, and I'm going to get Vertical Aviation International help me, is the best way. And then talking to the companies is, if I have a military pilot and he has this amount of hours or whatever, how do I get him to you where he's qualified and you're happy with what he needs? Like, how many hours of transition do we need to do? And like, what does that look like for this? Like, cause each company I think is going to be different, but the point is like, I care and I want to do that for them. Like, I don't care how much time it takes or how difficult it is, or if it costs me money, or, like I've put in even just this first semester, like some of, training and doing stuff with these kids and offering different things is like some of the things I'm like, well, we're not making any money. But I want them to be better. So if they need that, just give them the time and I'll figure it out. Like, just because I want them to be safe. I don't want anybody to make stupid mistakes, and I don't want them to be trained if they're an emergency and they weren't trained well enough, like whatever the case may be. I'm such a perfectionist that I'm like, okay, I want them to have this, all these opportunities. What books do you need? Can you afford them? If you can't, let me find a way. I'll get somebody to sponsor it. Somebody's going to donate to me. I will go advocate. I'll go knock on doors. Like we've gotten into with, some of the senators and Congress. Actually, Congressman Tom Cole has heard about us, and I met him at one of the Oklahoma defense briefings, and met him, and his office reached out and they want to come see our operation because they've heard about us. Which is great. And so we have like the whole veteran coalition guys that are all in the state capitol, and that we have a lot of people that want to help. It's just me putting all the pieces, like when they're like, how can I help you? How can I help you? I'm like, I know you could. Let me figure out how to ask you for help, because I'm still kind of learning it, but there was a bill that's going to be introduced that are going to help, the Oklahoma National Guardsmen pay for them to go through flight training. And I'm pushing it, and I'm like, that I can help. And, you know, and then high schools, we're working on redoing all the curriculum that's going to go into these schools for aviation programs in high schools, that gives them a better rotor curriculum than what's currently being offered, and then bringing them in and letting them do discovery flights and taking my simulator over there and letting them get in the simulator, because it's a portal, it's like on a trailer. It's really nice, like fully automated. It's FAA certified for, you know, you can get log actual instrument time in it. And but I was like, I'll do that. I'll take it. Like, get people interested in it and get them to love it and see that what's out there, and just know that I'm going to do it different. I'll do it. I had this little like coined term that I was like, do it different, but do it better. And so, but I just don't want some people like to criticize me and be like, oh, you're going to reinvent the wheel. I'm not. Obviously, people have been flying. I just think there's ways that you can make it better and give more opportunity. And it's not about the money. Like, and I keep telling people that, I'm like, trust me, it's not about the money. Like, it's been a struggle. By no means am I like rolling in the dough. It's been really hard. And but I really want to make this industry better, because I've gotten so passionate about it, and I care so much about people that have been screwed over, or they, you know, they didn't get the proper training, and or God forbid they've had accidents and things. Like, I just like trying to just do it, do it different, do it better.
Yeah.
I'm trying. That's what I'm going for.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not, I don't know. I don't care about the money. I just care that the industry is great, and I get to meet great people, and I get to make great pilots. And I can be like, if a company sees that you graduated from Simplify Helicopters, I want that company to go, oh, hell yeah, you're hired. Like, that's what my goal in life is you went through training with us, then for sure you got good training. And so that's what is important to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And you touched on one thing that's like near and dear to my heart too. And it's that transition out of the military, right?
It's so hard. Yeah.
Applying skills, you know, not just leadership and work ethic and stuff like that, you know, and applying it to civilian life is sometimes very, very, very difficult, you know? And if opportunities exist where it's easier to transition, right? Not just, all right, this is how you fill out a resume and go start applying. That's not really a transition,
Yeah.
right? Your transition, and there's so many factors that go into transitions. There's the mental health aspect. There's, you know, financial stability. There's, homelessness, right? All these factors, these barriers that end up existing once you get out. And making that transition easier, and the fact that like you're looking to do that with your company is so commendable. And I love the fact that you're doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. That everything you just said is, and like understanding your benefits. Like I said, I got out. I didn't even know my GI Bill would cover flight training, or
Right.
how to even get it, who to call or what to do with it. So if I can create a program like that, then I want to be a one-stop shop, and where I can help, or at least I'll have like a whole sheet of like, hey, these are the people that you can call. Here's some contacts for you. Call this person, can do this can do that. I'm gonna fly. If you fly with us like 10 hours, whatever, then this job's gonna hire you, and let me contact you with them. Like, to make it not so hard, because it is hard. It's hard leaving the military, and maybe I'm like, oh God, what do I do? What do I do now?
Yeah.
And
Right.
then you know the whole FAA medical and the VA, and that's been like a big thing, and all these vets losing their medicals because not reporting their disabilities, and that a lot of people lost their medicals over that. And I struggled with it because I have a disability rating, and I've been struggling with the FAA over the same thing, and I know that whole struggle. And so I even thought, we're looking at building our own hangar and custom designing it to give us more space and be able to offer a lot more. And one of the things that I was looking at is, I know somebody that is amazing at navigating the FAA medical system with and the veterans, working with veterans and making sure they get their medicals or get them back or whatever. And I was thinking about launching a company that's in-house that can help with medicals for, because we're so veteran heavy. Everybody's veterans. And like, I know so many that are like, I'm so scared to like, can I say this? Can I do that? Or am I going to lose? Can I fly? Will I lose my pilot's license? All these things.
Right.
If I had something like that in house, then it's another piece of the puzzle that helps everybody. And like, especially military to civilian, you're going to need somebody to help you navigate your medical. If you come out with any disabilities and it's got to get reported to the FAA, that's confusing and it is a nightmare. And so I want to be able to help there too. So if I can create, like have her come on board and come up with something in-house to help, then that'll be part of another piece of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I do feel that, and I've felt this before too. And a lot of your journeys, I was a police officer for 11 and a half years. And then I had a recent job transition. I've been there for about 4 months now. Maybe a little over 4 months. So I left the policing career and associate director over at Veterans Rally Point, which is 18,000 square foot facility for military veterans and their immediate family members. And, I felt like I had more to give, right? I felt like, my experiences and, my ups and downs, even though sometimes like, people I'd talk to and they're like, I would never know anything was wrong, and
Yeah.
I'm like, well, you didn't ask, and there's a lot of times where I feel like when we get out of the military, inadvertently, you get that thought that it's you versus them because of how difficult it is sometimes, and,
Like they won't understand, even if you did try to tell them. You're like, you're
yeah.
not going to get it. Like, you're not going to understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of times people are like, just reach out, just reach out. And I've talked to so many people and they've reached out to people. And then, because it's uncomfortable, like they don't make time for the conversation, you know? And that little conversation of just being able to vent, right? Whatever you're going through, whether it's, hard time, family loss, whatever the case may be, just listen, right? Because listening, allowing somebody to say it out loud, right? And this is one of the main reasons why I started a podcast, especially when people sit down in my studio, is this is therapeutic for me as well. Because I'm actually hearing myself say things out loud, and you're allowing yourself to understand your thoughts. You're allowing yourself to process, what you're not putting out to the world sometimes, and it allows you to slow things down. I actually had good friend of mine. He was in here, and he's one of those people that talks real fast, amps himself up for no reason. Like he could start an argument with himself, and nobody could say a word, and he would be mad at that other person.
Yeah.
And I had him sit down. I said, "Hey, we're not going to like record or anything. I'm just going to turn the audio on, and we're going to have a conversation with the headphones on and the microphone." And as soon as that happened, it's crazy. It's a beautiful thing watching. He slowed down, right? He slowed down his speech. It wasn't pressured. We had like a 30-minute conversation with the headphones on, not recording or doing anything, just turning the audio board on, and we got done. And as soon as he takes the headphones off, all of a sudden, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you just need to wear headphones all the time, man. But he's like, oh my God, that was an out of body experience almost for him, because even though you talk and you can hear yourself, having it like go through your ears, and it's the only thing you hear. You can't really hear much else because of the noise canceling headphones. And you're actually hearing your voice for what it really sounds like, and what you're actually saying gets processed a little bit different. And that's what I love about what I do. And I didn't realize how much I would enjoy it when I started this. And, I almost immediately, within the first year, I ended up building this 500 square foot studio that I'm in and creating a space that is soundproof, that has it has a feel to it. It's its own character. I have stuff from my grandfather when he served. Behind me, I have my dog tags and his dog tags. I have military memorabilia, constitution, stuff like that around the space. It's got a feeling to it because I wanted to create a space where people don't feel like they're in a studio and they're able to just sit there and have a conversation. And the power of storytelling to reach people is so inspiring, and it can, aspire others to do great things.
Yeah, I could see that. And, I have, because I've done a couple of these like podcasts with people and some interviews. And then I've had people reach out to me like, hey, I saw that. And like, I would love to meet you, or I'd love to talk to you in person, or like, oh, and I didn't even realize that my story would even be, I mean, yeah, okay, I get it. I was homeless and then now I'm here. And a lot of people are like, how the hell did you do that? And so I see that aspect of it, because I'm like, it was hard. Like some shit, and I could get, and you have all the time in the world. We could probably sit here for hours and I could really dig deep and like tell you, the struggles and like the tears and the crying and the hopelessness that I felt so many times, and I wanted to give up, and I was like, this is stupid. I cannot believe I'm doing this. And like, I'll just sell everything and go travel the world or something, like there's so many times that I'm like, I don't know why I put up with the things that, or the, things that have happened to me or whatever. And so, but I could see that, like hearing, like if anybody had any kind of similar experience to you, or you're in this position where you're like, God, I don't want to be doing this. It's hard, or this sucks, or the risks are too outrageous. Like, I don't want to take the risk because I could lose everything. And if somebody's in a similar position and then they tell you what they did and how they got through, I can see that it would be inspiring to keep them going. Like, don't give up. It's like, even at your most hopeless time when you're like, there's no freaking way I'm pulling myself out of this one. Like, I really got myself in a good one this time, kind of thing. And then,
Right.
And then when you come out, it almost is like empowering. You're like, man, I can do anything. I can do this. Like, oh, I'm not scared of anything. Like, what's the next crazy idea? I'm going after it. I can pull this one off. And I really have gotten that way. I didn't used to be the way that I am now. It's just, I think the down, like, after my dad passed away and I hit rock bottom, and I felt the most hopeless that I have ever felt in my life. Like, I kept saying, like, I was trying to express like how I felt when he passed away, because I have no living grandparents. My mom had already passed away. I was his only child, and Mike and I were in a new relationship, and that was it. I wasn't close to anybody. My half siblings and I had been estranged for many years. And so like, I just remember sitting going, holy shit, like, I am alone. Like, I am alone. Like, I felt like an orphan. I felt like I had nothing. I had nobody. And I just remember, because my dad was like, it was like that spot that you're like, it's always there. I always have a place to call home. If I need money, I'll call my dad. If I need help, I'll call my dad. Like, I was like always there, no matter what. Through any relationship, through anything, I had him. And when he passed away, I was like, it was this like really sobering moment where I didn't realize how much I had relied on that relationship and how much comfort it had brought me until it was gone. And I just remember like being in this daze where I was just kind of like, my life is over. Like, I can't go on. Like, that's it. Like, how do I survive it? I don't have anybody. Like, Mike and I just started dating, like, literally got together. He showed up at the hospital 3 days before my dad passed away. I hadn't seen him since the Marine Corps. Like, since 2010, and this was 2019, and I didn't know him, right? Like, I didn't know him, and he had saw that I was at the hospital with my dad, by myself, with my dog all the time, and he's like, why are you always alone? I'm like, well, I don't really have anybody. And he showed up and didn't leave, slept at the hospital, and then 3 days later, my dad passed away. And then we just kind of, he was there, we became close, and then we've been together ever since. But in the beginning, it's like I still didn't know him, right? And so like I felt like I can't go on. Like I'm gonna die. I'm just gonna wait. I'm just gonna die in my sleep. Like that. I was like, I don't know what to do with myself. And it was so freaking hard. Like the hardest thing that hands down was probably the hardest like realization coming to Jesus, whatever thing you want to call it, that I've ever been through in my entire life. Where I was like, I am so alone. Like if I fail, I have nobody. Like if what happens to me, like I don't have anybody looking out for me. Nobody cares about me. I don't have any children. Like I don't have anything. I had nothing. And that's what I would say that to myself. I'm like, I have nothing. I have nobody. And like, and then I didn't leave bed. I just remember not wanting to leave the house, and I didn't leave my bed, and like I would cry all the time. Like I was like, it was awful. I was like awful, awful, awful. And it was so hard. It was so hard. And then it was just kind of like slowly coming out of it. And I mean, having Mike there was definitely a benefit. He didn't know what to do with me because, mind you, we just got together and my dad passed away, and here I am a hot mess. And he's probably like, what the hell? Like, what do I do? And I'm just like, I can't go on, and it was crazy. It was the weirdest feeling. And it took me it probably took me a solid year to like come out of it, like really start to be like, all right, I'm on my own. Like, okay, I can do this. Like, okay, Mike didn't leave me. He's still here. It's gonna be okay. I know what I'm doing. I'm like a licensed mechanic. I have 2 degrees. Like I have a bachelor's degree in aviation, focus in aviation management, and now have a master's degree in intelligence from Georgetown. Like I have all these things. I'm like, I'm not stupid. I know how to like, and so it's just like hard. It was really, 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 really hard. And not knowing who to talk to or who to even explain that to. Like, how do you explain to somebody? Because somebody like where you're so alone, where I felt so alone. And it was really hard to come out of it and like get back to being focused and knowing that like, okay, I can still survive and I can go make him proud, and I can still do that. And so, that was hard. That was like the hardest thing ever. So I
Yeah.
did pull through that. So here I am. After all of that,
Yeah.
I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I did, which is crazy.
Well,
But
and
yeah,
that's resilience, right? And um, I mean, there's no textbook for it, right? There's no textbook for life. There's no textbook for mentally preparing yourself for anything that can become devastating, or how to rebound from it. All that stuff, everything that we deal with in life. Um, we need to heavily rely on others sometimes, because we the perspective we give ourselves sometimes is not positive, especially when we find ourselves in a dark place, and listening to others, allowing others to give us perspective, is so crucial to healing, and whether it's just one person or 5 people, I wouldn't say go tell, 100 people, but,
yeah,
you know, I mean, it's one of those things where, we have to take it in stride, right? And I heard this saying, you've probably heard it. I heard it years ago. This too shall pass, right? And, it's one of those things where like, good high times, good times, and then you got your lows. And, if you always, no matter what, in the back of your mind, say this too shall pass, and it gives you a little perspective that, tomorrow, and I'm a huge, I'm a huge fan of metaphors, because, I had an episode I did with somebody a couple weeks ago. We dove into like metaphors and complete a sentence with just metaphors. Um, but the point of it is, you know, and I always say that you can't be 100% for somebody else if you're not 100% for yourself first, and we try so hard, and especially as like police officer, first responders, military veterans, we try so hard to be there for others so often that sometimes we forget that self-care for ourselves. And, once everything's all done and somebody else is, a little bit better in their own way because you've helped them or whatever, you still got your own shit going on, you know? And we
Yeah.
got to like make sure we have a good balance for that.
Yeah. And it's nice to hear, like, if you're listening to somebody talking, you listen to their story, you're like, oh my God, somebody else has gone through this and they're okay. And it's okay to be positive. It's okay. It's not like, I really, like, I talk to Mike a lot about this, is like, if you're positive, it literally can change so much outlook. And I realize that now, like, because I was very, like, when after that all happened and we were like at the lowest of the low, like, I was just like, you let the bad thoughts in and all the negativity, and then you're just like pessimistic, and it really doesn't help you. Like, now I'm like, people are always like, you're so positive all the time, and I'm like, I have to be, because the minute I let it in that, like, oh my God, this may not work, or oh shit, what if I start to fail, or if, oh, I didn't do a very good job, or like, if I start to let it in, then it like manifests, like, and then it like festers, and then it just gets worse, and then it's like you manifest more negative. And so I'm like, you just have to be it's okay, it's gonna be okay, we'll get through it. Even if it, like, worst case scenario, there's still a silver lining. I'm like, I say this all the time, like, worst case scenario, everything fails, I have to sell everything, and then I'll just buy a really nice camper and I'll just go travel around the US. I just be silver lining all the time. I'm not going to fail, but I always am like, and then I tell myself, like, it's fine, I'm not going to fail, I'm going to figure it out, I'll find a way, I'll make it work, it'll be okay, like, keep going. Like, I know, like, when I'm tired, I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed, I'm like, it's going to be okay, just take a minute, like, it's okay to sit down, and it's okay to take a deep breath, and it's okay to brain dump, and it's okay to go play PlayStation for an hour, and it's okay to, like, just chill and go and not think about anything, to like regroup for a second and then go. Because especially as a business owner, that nobody, like, people say, but you never get it until you're in it. Like, people are like, oh, as a business owner, you're on call 24/7. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. Then you are, and you're like, oh God, like, you have no idea until, like, every day your phone's ringing, like, hey, we need this. Hey, can you do this? Hey, like, this is happening. Hey, this flight's going out. Hey, this is like, every day, all day, any time of the night, hours, whatever. It's like, you're on call 24/7, and you can't walk away, because it's your baby, it's your business. You can't leave it. You can't give up. You can't throw your hands in the air. You can't do any of those things. And so sometimes it's overwhelming, and I have to be like this self-care thing. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go get a massage today, and I'm going to brain dump, and I'm just going to sit, and I'm going to do absolutely nothing for, like, even if it's just 30 minutes, I'll be okay. Everything's going to be fine. I'm going to figure out all the problems. Like, cause I got hit with a few problems, like, all at once. And I'm like, okay, take a deep breath, like, this aircraft broke, and this person's calling. I'm like, and then, but it's okay. And it's okay to get overwhelmed, and it's okay to, like, keep pushing forward. But the positivity will keep your sanity. Like, be positive, think positive. Like, the minute you start to think negative, you're like, shit, this is going to not work. And then you just have to stop yourself and be like, no, it's okay. I'll find a way. I will phone a friend, and I will find somebody that knows somebody that can help me. And I don't care about asking for help. I don't care to, like, I don't think I know everything. I don't think I'm an expert in anything. Like, I'm like, you know what? I think I'm good, but I can always be better. And I'm humble enough to say that. And, like, I'm open-minded to listening to other inputs. And if somebody's idea is better than mine, I'm okay with it. I don't get offended. It's okay. If you're like, man, I should have thought of that, I didn't, but I love it, let's do it. Like, I'm okay with it. And so I think that is what makes us, like, different. I know a lot of people, it's hard, but that would be my advice to anybody. Like, in the darkest hour, stay positive. Find the silver lining, find the light. It's okay. And tell yourself that it will be okay and you'll get through it. Like, keep pushing forward, because you're going to come out. Like, don't give up. The minute you give up, you failed. So as long as you don't give up, you're not going to fail. So just don't give up. Like, just keep going. And so, because I feel like I have failed. I did give up. I gave up when my dad passed away for a while. And then the minute I came out of it, I was like, I'm invincible. I can do anything. I can do anything there is that to do. I came out of that. And so that would be, like, advice that I would write in a book.
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I've been asked to do a book, but I'm like, I'm not ready there. I'm not mentally ready to like do a book. I feel like I'm not like, you know, this, like, who wants to hear what I have to say? Like, why would me putting it in a book? Like, I'm not a professional or expert in anything per se. Like, I'm good, but
Yeah.
anyways, that's another story. But
Yeah. And I mean, you touched on it, and it's so true. Like the management of expectations and, you know, understanding that you just manage your failures, right? You're going to have them, right? Especially as a business owner, there are
mhm.
going to be, there's no like exactly like a textbook answer that is going to make you successful, right? In business, right?
Listen to movies.
You can have so many degrees, right? And have great grades and all this other stuff, but they don't talk about the hard work, right? That go in the amount of hours. Like, if you're thinking that you're going to punch in and punch out as a business owner, you probably should not go into business for yourself because, like you said, your phone is going to ring. You know, there's going to be meetings you have to set up. Nobody's going to be until like you have somebody that can do a schedule for you. You're doing it all yourself, right? And there's so much that, you know, goes into, and it's the passion, right? It's the passion, pouring yourself into the love of what you're doing, right? That's going to help you, you know, succeed as well. And they don't teach that in a textbook either. You know, you you have to love what you do too, you know?
And then
And
there's sometimes you're gonna think that you love it and you're like, I really hate this. And then the next day you wake up and you're like, just kidding, I love it. I hated it yesterday. I love it today. It's gonna be okay. Because there's times I'm like, why am
oh yeah.
I what?
Yeah, there was times when I started Everlasting Veteran that I'm like, you know what am I doing? Like what am I doing? Like why am I doing this? Like, you know, because there's those thoughts and you're like looking at like and you start doing one of my biggest advice I give for anybody, don't compare yourself to others, right? Because the trajectory you want to put yourself on, you don't want to walk in somebody else's shoes, right? You want to create, if you're trying to create something for yourself, you're blazing a path that nobody's walked down before, right? And 9 times out of 10, like, you're going to succeed walking your own path and
For
stay true to who you are and have that humble hustle, right?
well, I say, you know, it's like you can take like another flight school, for example. There's great flight schools out there that do a good job. And like you can take the good, but then you're like, you know what? I don't like that. So you're gonna have to pioneer your own new path on that aspect. Like you can use goods, but then take the bads in the industry. Like for me, I'm taking the bads in the industry and trying to make something new out of it instead of following the same path and following what everybody else does is, you know, yep, here's these programs, here's our curriculum, here's this, and yep, good luck, see ya. Okay, cool, I did it. I've trained some pilots. Like I didn't want that. And you know, I was shocked to find out that I was the only female veteran owned helicopter flight school in the country. Well, technically in the world, because I don't know of one. I don't know of any. I know there's some fixed wing ones. I know there's women owned helicopter flight schools. I think there's like one or two. But there's no veterans. And so I'm like, this is ridiculous. Get out, female veterans, rally up. Like I'm great. Okay, cool. I'm the only one right now, but I don't need to be the only one, and I don't want to. I want everybody to be successful, and I want to see everybody else do great things. Like I had a female, and I'm supposed to meet with her, and she's an Army pilot, a Chinook pilot, and she just got out, and she had messaged, and she said she was interested in flying, and she was interested in maybe starting her own business. And I'm like, I'm not in competition with anybody. Like, and that's when the minute you start thinking you're in competition with all these other people is the minute I think you'll fail. And because it breeds like animosity and like I don't like people that are like always out to get somebody else or like trying to be better than somebody else. I want to be great, and I want to be the best flight school, great. But if somebody else came along and was like, will you help me start a flight school? I probably would. I'm like, you know what? I don't, yes, I think everybody should get like a shot, and I would help anybody, even if it was my direct competition, if you will, right? So
Right.
she asked me if I'd help her and give her some advice. I'm like, you bet your ass I will. I was like, I'll sit down and I'll talk to you and I'll tell you, you want to start a helicopter flight school? So be it. Like, you know what? Like, where are you going? Like, that's just my personality. It's just the way that I am. I just wouldn't try to stop anybody else from being successful or not help them because they're my competition or whatever. I like, and again, pioneer art, like listen, like if she's like, hey, I came up with this idea, it's better than yours. I'm like, well, crap, it is. Like maybe I can make myself better. And just, I think that you gotta open your eyes and see around you for what it is. And if you can walk your own path and walk your own path. And I think that I'm on my own path. Nobody else has really done it. Are there other flight schools? Yeah. They're women owned. Yeah. Women veteran. I mean, it just sets me apart and I'm different for it. But, I just kept doing it. And I wasn't intimidated by that. Like, oh, you're the only one. Like, huh, okay. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
And so be it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is too, like, it doesn't matter if it's a helicopter company, a podcast, or any business that's owned by an individual, right? They start out. It all comes down to the work, right? It all comes down to the work you put into it. And you can give all the tools, but if like I said, if you're thinking you're showing up for that 9 to 5, right?
Happening. No.
It's not gonna work out so well.
You're going to be sleepless nights, and at 2 a.m, you're going to come up and you're going to wake up out of your sleep and go, oh my God, I forgot to do this, or I didn't do this, or I need to do this. And it's going to bug you, and you're going to get up at like 2 a.m, and you're going to go get on the computer and you're going to be typing something like that. These things, like, it's the success of it relies on you. Like
Right.
your podcast, the success of your podcast, nobody's going to do it but you. Like, no one's going to go out there and promote for you. Nobody's going to go out there and get people to come on. Nobody's going to do anything for you but you. And so that's what people like. When you work for another company, you don't think about that because you're not in charge. You're not, even if you're like the manager, you're still not the head guy. Like, you still are missing some other pieces. And so when it's all on you and everything is you just gotta keep on going. Like, it's gonna suck, but it's gonna be great too. It's rewarding. Like, get out there, keep pushing, do good things, make the world better, and you'll feel it. Like, oh, man, I did that. Look at what I did.
Exactly.
I made it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're going to end on that high note because that is a great way to end. And I appreciate all your time. And, please, anybody go check out separateflyhelicopters.com. Brandi, thank you so much. And congratulations on all your hard work. A lot of people say congratulations on your success, right? Congratulations on your hard work, the resilience and perseverance for you to push through your journey through the military, after the military, is truly commendable, and you're an amazing individual. So thank you for finding the time to jump on Everlasting Veteran.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on here.
Absolutely. And anytime. And when you get some updates, you're definitely welcome to jump back on to share that with the crew.
We'll have some big ones this year. So come summer, be prepared.
Looking forward to it. All right, everybody. It's your host, Ryan Landry, with Everlasting Veteran Podcasts, joined in studio with Brandi Rector, CEO of Separate Fly Helicopters. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Have a wonderful day.